that your stuff?
Good evening. I'm happy to welcome all of my fellow board members and call the September 10th, 2019 school board meeting and final budget hearing to order. Whether you are in attendance here or watching from another location, my colleagues and I are pleased you took the time to join us. We appreciate and applaud your commitment to partnering with us in support of our schools, our students, our staff, and our community. While the board and Brevard Public School staff members are fully committed to doing our best to ensure excellence in Brevard Public Schools, we know that our success depends heavily on an engaged and committed community to work alongside us and help us to continually improve. Thank you for being an active participant in the process. Pam, roll call, please.
Mrs. Belford?
Present.
Ms. McDougall?
Present.
Mrs. Deskovich?
Present.
Mrs. Campbell?
Present.
And Mr. Susan?
Present.
At this time, the board will hold a silent moment of reflection and invite you to join us. And we might be considerate of of those that live in the Bahamas and have been affected throughout the Bahamas and other areas of the world from the recent hurricanes. Thank you. Matt Reed, Assistant Superintendent of Government and Community Relations, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to offer my fellow board members and Dr. Mullins the opportunity to recognize students, staff, or members of our community. We're going to try to limit it to 2 or 3 at the most.
I only have one. How much is that?
So Matt can borrow one of yours. Mr. Susan, you can have 3 because you can borrow one of Ms. McDougall's. And Mr. Susan, if you want to start us off, please.
What? So I have some good announcements, and I'll just keep it short, Madam Chair. The first one is I want to welcome Jason into my district as far as a principal. I'm really looking forward to Longleaf's a very special school, and I'm really looking forward to it. I heard that they were trying to get him on the phone, and he was working out, so I think I'm going to recruit him for my rugby team. It's going to be a good relationship, but welcome on board, man, and I'm looking forward to having a good year with you. The next thing is officially in 10 days, 11 days, we are going to have the first ever drone race league begin. O'Galley's driving it, and there's going to be literally schools racing drones for the first time in Brevard County history inside the aviation hangar at O'Galley High School. And it's in conjunction with Grumman and some of the other organizations. It's a massive opportunity. He's been trying to put it together now for about a year and a half. Finally, all the legalities, Bill McGinnis. And I called the Whirly Girls at West Shore and told them, you guys better get on this because they didn't know about it, and I wanted to see them go beat Bill. And they have a couple of private schools and everything happening, so it's just going to be really exciting. That's not this Saturday, the next Saturday at 9 o'clock at O'Galley High School. And I have a lot of other things, but I just wanted to pass it on, and we can get moving on the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Susan. Ms. McDougall?
Sure. I just have one thing. I wanted to give a shout out to the following schools regarding the Florida Power Library Schools. And that's, it's sponsored by the Florida Department of Education and the Florida Association of Supervisors of Media. And it recognizes schools with exceptional school library programs. And we have, I think we have 15 schools in it, but we have some new people. Shout out to Stevenson Elementary School, one of my schools, for a new award recipient, and that's shout out to Ms. Flieger, the principal, and to our media specialist, Ms. O'Connor. Anderson is another one of my schools who was a renewal of this award, so shout out to Principal Harris and to the media specialist, Ms. Hoffman. And the other schools are not mine, but they're Deloria, Lockmar, Meadow Lane, and Turner. So shout out to everybody in those schools. Well done. I really support medias. In my past life, in one of my past lives, I was also a librarian. So it makes it, it's a wonderful award, and I'm very proud of all of our schools for that.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Ms. Belford?
Thank you, Ms. Deskovich. Had the opportunity today to go out and recognize some of our superstars. Spent about an hour or so at Space Coast Junior Senior High School recognizing a few of their teachers. Wendy Hamoud and Krista Aker from Space Coast Junior Senior High School gave up the very last week of their summer to travel to Pensacola with a group of 45 students that received the L3 scholarship to attend the National Flight Academy. And had they not gone, we probably would not have been able to send those students. They rode the bus with them. We met the bus at midnight, I think, the first night. They rode the bus up with them. They stayed up in Pensacola in the event that any of the students needed any assistance while they were up there, because most parents could not travel up there, and rode the bus back with them. So they were den moms basically for a week. And without their support, many of those students probably would not have been able to participate in that particular opportunity, and it was an awesome opportunity for them. So recognize both of them for being great bridge builders. And then I also had the opportunity today, and want to thank Carrie Weeks, who is front office at Space Coast Junior Senior. We had a bit of a snag in our transportation process, and created a little bit of confusion, an enormous amount of confusion at the beginning of the year for some Space Coast families. And Carrie, in her typical fashion of what she does at Space Coast, handled it all with grace and a smile. She ended up staying over on Friday night and coming in on Saturday to get it all worked out. So that we could make sure that all of the students were all set up to be ready to start the school year and to alleviate the parents' concerns. So had the opportunity to recognize her today for an excellence achiever and in her service to our community. And then, so I'm counting those as one because they were all at one school, Ms. Deskovich. And then just the other one that I will throw out there is thank you so much to everyone that helped us to get through the hurricane, from all of our cabinet members to all of our folks that worked in the shelters, our facility staff, our bus drivers that transported people to shelters, certainly Dr. Mullins, who was there handling things and advocated for me for the North End for a shelter that we needed. And Mr. Novelli, congratulations on successfully getting through your first hurricane as COO. We certainly appreciate your leadership and everyone else's leadership in the process too. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belford. Ms. Campbell?
I want to thank Major Welters and also Sheriff Ivy for inviting us as the board to come up and see the Milo training facility, which is what our security specialists and our SROs, right, all train on. It's pretty intense, and we're just, after leaving, every time we get to hear more about what they go through, we feel more confident in the great training they did. So I was thankful for that. And I just want to jump in there with what Ms. Belford said. There's so many people that I think the community doesn't realize when hurricanes come. I know I didn't realize before that they're on duty, and that includes our cafeteria managers and our custodial staff and some of our secretarial staff, as well as our principals and assistant principals. And so it's just a lot of people that have to get their own homes and families ready, and then they report for duty and they stay until it's over. And the B team comes in, and they sleep on air mattresses in their offices and all kinds of things. So I'm really grateful for that, even though I am super grateful that the hurricane did not bring the damage that we expected, but I am very grateful for those people who were prepared either way. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Dr. Mullins?
Thank you, and I'm gonna follow suit because I don't think enough thanks can go out to the people who stood behind our community during this very uncertain and unsettling time of the hurricane. And just to continue the list, our transportation folks helped transport community members who couldn't get to the shelters on their own. Our warehouse folks took care of getting cots, kits, water to our shelters. Our food service folks, it isn't just walking into the school and being ready to open the cafeteria. It's inventorying the food at the shelter site, bringing in food from neighboring schools, and then all being mindful of, we have to reopen schools a day or two after that's over, and what food have we used at the shelters that we don't have available to open schools? So the leadership behind food service, taking all those things into consideration. Just can't do a big enough shout out for our law enforcement folks. We had law enforcement representatives at every one of our shelter sites and had their presence in the EOC, really triaging every possible issue for us. Our facilities and maintenance team behind the scenes, on call 24/7, and just responding to everything from air conditioning to electrical questions to plumbing issues to you name it. It all comes into play. Our administrators and support staff that make themselves available and with such grace and such poise and such kindness and support to our community. I had the privilege of visiting probably 3 or 4 shelters with some other staff, and in about 5 seconds, you just feel the receptiveness and the willingness to help and assist. And our county partners, from Parks and Rec to other county workers assisting us in the shelters, and the communication that was at play between the EOC. Really, the county runs the EOC and the shelters, but we provide a lot of the support and the services, and communication is key, and that relationship is strong and was so evident throughout the process. And I have to do a special shout out to the individuals, the leaders in the back of the room who are on call 24/7 as well and are responding to a lot of expectations and requests and so on. So I just couldn't be more appreciative of senior cabinet and their commitment to support our schools, our shelters, and our staff. And then our teachers across our schools who prepare their classrooms in a tremendous moment of uncertainty, take care of their families, and then wonder what their professional life is going to look like when they come back. Because, not only do we wonder about our homes, but what's going to happen to our schools, and then come back and prepare their classrooms once again to open doors and open their hearts to our kids. And just a tremendous outpouring, a demonstration of the excellence that Brevard Public Schools commits to supporting and loving our community. So just feel very blessed, like all of us, that it didn't materialize the way it could have, or certainly seemed it was going to. But again, just so proud that we were there for our community. And then last, I participated in the It Takes a Village meeting yesterday at Jackson Middle School. The Titusville feeder chain comes together, law enforcement, faith-based, volunteers, different school representatives from all the feeder schools. They come together regularly to support each other and know what is going on in our schools and to continually connect the community to our schools. A great conversation of engagement, and just so appreciate Ms. Susan, the principal there, that kind of spearheads that, but also the leadership that's represented around the table. And Titusville PD is always there, and I just got to do a shout out to them, and they continue to be a leader in supporting schools with the School Resource Officer program. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. I just want to reiterate, I know seems like we've all mentioned the hurricane, but Mr. Susan, I think, was it you that said Mr. Novelli's first hurricane, or was it Ms. Belford? So I'm going to just rephrase that. Mr. Novelli, the only hurricane you are going to have to manage. So I'm going to correct that. Not that you won't be here a long time, but that we won't have any more hurricanes. So we have to think positively. And then just some other little facts and statistics. Our food services team, for example, served up 9,000 meals over the couple days of evacuation. I just think it's remarkable that our staff is working and they're considered vital and important personnel during this this very uncertain time for our entire community. I too visited a couple shelters, and the feeling when you walk in to watch our principals, you walk into they're in different schools usually than the schools that they're principals of or assistant principals in, and there they are in shorts and t-shirts, which I've never seen them in before, and doing an entirely different job than they were hired for or have trained for in any way, shape, or form, and they're excelling at it. And they're still in a service role, but here they are, like at Sherwood with the 101, I think it was a 101-year-old woman. Here's our principal. Instead of taking care of kindergartners, they now have a 101-year-old woman that they're tending to, and it's really a special experience to see them in that capacity. So I'm grateful to all of our employees, but especially those that worked hard over the hurricane evacuation break.
And I believe she actually turned 101 while in the shelter, and they
Was
had a
it-
birthday party.
Oh, was it her? Oh my goodness, that is fantastic. Okay, we're going to move on to the adoption portion, the adoption of our agenda. Dr. Mullins.
Ms. Deskovich and members of the board, on this evening's agenda, we have administrative staff recommendations, 1 recognition, 9 consent items, 22 action items, which include the final budget hearing, and 6 informational items. You also have the yellow supplemental agenda, which are changes made to the agenda since being released to the public on Monday, September 2nd, 2019. Item A7 on administrative staff recommendations received revisions. Attachments were added to G27 on forward budget documentation and policies 3120, employment of staff 3122, equal employment opportunity 5112, entrance requirements 5330, use of medication 5540, the school and community agencies 8405, school safety 8407, safe school officers 6510, payroll authorization, and 5310, health services. Item F15 on uniform statewide assessment calendar was moved from information to consent.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Belford, second by Mr. Susan. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins, will you please let us know about the administrative staff recommendations?
Madam Chair, there is 1 person on this agenda item for the board to consider.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
All right, we want to welcome and congratulate Mr. Jason Sherburne on his reclassification and transfer from the position of Assistant Principal of Lockmar Elementary to the position of Principal at Longleaf Elementary. Congratulations, Mr. Sherburne, and your long line of family and friends here to support you.
Thank you very much, and good evening. Thank you, board. Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Thank you to Ms. Klein for the opportunity, to Ms. Marilyn Sylvester, my current director, serving in my area, and to my new director, Tara Harris, which has also kind of mentored me through the whole principal program. I'd like to extend a thank you to the Longleaf staff here tonight. I understand tonight is open house night, and these poor souls were willing to come support me, so that shows a lot starting right off the bat, so thank you very much. I'm looking forward and excited to the year with you. Sitting here to my right here, I have Miss Cindy Whalen, who I worked with extensively at Port Malabar. She has mentored me through the administration as well. And last but not least, my beautiful family here. My beautiful wife, Nicole Sherburne. She is a current teacher at Port Malabar Elementary School. My 2 boys, Evan, who attends Port Malabar with his mother. And my other boy, Logan Sherburne, who is attending West Shore. And then I have my mother-in-law and her twin, which is my aunt, Norma and Nancy. And then I have my father-in-law, Ed Nowak. And finally, the former principal of Palm Bay Magnet High School, John Thomas, in the house once more. I never thought he would probably come back here again, but we invited him to support me as well. So thank you to all. I look forward to a great year and getting to know the staff and the community. Thank you.
Is that really John Thomas? I didn't know you could look that good after into retirement. Looking good, sir.
Okay, that brings us to our recognition item, which I'm excited about. Dr. Mullins.
Yes, tonight we'll be recognizing our 12th school in Brevard County to become a suicide prevention certified school. Ms. Christine Moore, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, will facilitate the recognition. Ms. Moore?
Hey. Thank you, Dr. Mullins, member of the board, and guests. The 2019 Florida legislature passed Senate Bill 1418, and Governor Ron DeSantis signed the bill into law on June 25, 2019. Senate Bill 1418 amends Section 1012 Florida statutes by requiring the Florida Department of Education to develop a list of approved suicide screening instruments and establish additional criteria and posting requirements for suicide prevention certified schools. Several of our schools, in fact 11 schools, have already been suicide prevention certified. Cocoa Beach Junior Senior High School, Edgewood Junior Senior, Kennedy Middle School, Longleaf Elementary, Madison Middle, Mila Elementary, Roosevelt Elementary, Satellite High School, Space Coast Junior Senior, Sunrise, and our adult education centers. And even with the new requirements that the Senate passed, we still met all of the new requirements with those 11 schools. All of these schools have already voluntarily pursued this designation. The chosen online program for the 2-hour training is Axon Facts, which provides awareness and addresses the critical but limited role of educators in the process of identification and referral of potentially suicidal youth. It focuses on the realities and challenges inherent in the school setting through a variety of training formats. In addition to its other content, the program highlights 4 categories of youth who may be at elevated risk for suicide: youth involved in bullying, our LGBTQ youth, our gifted youth, and students being integrated back into school after a suicide attempt. Holland Elementary has recently completed the requirements for becoming a suicide prevention certified school. They had 100% of their staff participate in the training and follow-up activities, and they should be commended for the professionalism and the dedication to their students. Holland, can you guys come on up?
Ms. Moore, I'd like to add that they are getting awarded their certification on World Suicide Prevention Day. So that is, and during.
We planned it. So at this time, Dr. Mullins, would you and Ms. Deskovich please come on down to the floor? And I would like to personally introduce Principal Samantha Allison. Turn around so the people can see you. There you go. Assistant Principal Michelle Alloy. I always say your name wrong. Alloys. She says, I know, because I do all the time. And school counselor Alina Corrigan. To have 100% of your staff voluntarily take 2 hours of training and come back together around this to discuss this topic is tough. And these ladies did it. So thank you, Holland Elementary. You guys come on down. We're gonna get you for a photo.
Hiding from the camera.
Every picture, I'm like in the background, like I'm in the picture but not. I hate that.
I was just trying to confer with Ms. Moore. We've been told that we don't have exact numbers, so we can't share numbers, but I think we're ahead of the game. We can say that fairly when it comes to other districts in the state. Is that a?
That's right.
certified schools. So I tried to get confirmation from that today and couldn't get it. That's what we're told.
So we lead the state.
We lead the state.
That's what we
I
wanna
think
hear.
that's a fair statement. We lead the state in the number of sort of suicide prevention certified schools out of all 67 counties. So I think that is something for Brevard to be very proud of. We are now to the public comment portion of our meeting. That was quick.
You sound surprised.
Yeah, I am. That went by quick. Though School Board Policy 0169.1 limits to 30 minutes the portion of the meeting during which the public is invited to participate and provide public comment. The policy further provides that this time limit may be extended by a vote of the board. We have 9 speakers signed up this evening. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. We have a clock in front of me to help you keep track of your time. When your time is over, you'll be asked to stop and allow the next speaker his or her turn. Always keep in mind that reasonable decorum is expected at all times, and your statements should be directed to the board chairman. The chairman may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the time is up, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Should an individual not observe proper etiquette, the chairman may request the individual leave the meeting. Let's all encourage an environment appropriate for our children who may be present or watching from home. Let's begin with our first 3 speakers. Before speaking, please state your name, the organization you represent, and the topic you will be discussing. We have Kristen Spratt, followed by Patty Dunn, and followed by Anthony Colucci. Ms. Spratt?
Good evening. I'm here to speak to you about the ECG heart screenings that are being discussed as part of the sports evaluations. My son is a junior in high school and runs cross country. And I'm sorry, it's a little emotional for me. He, of course, had his sports physical passed with flying colors, and we did opt to have the ECG screening done. Within a few days, we got results that something was abnormal, and he was diagnosed with Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. We had no idea. He's 17. Let's face it, he's healthy. He's out there running. So we, of course, followed up with a pediatric cardiologist, and they confirmed the diagnosis. Fortunately for my son, there is a treatment, and he underwent a heart catheterization ablation. Within a week later, he was out back running. Now, I can't say 100% with 100% certainty that if he had not had the ECG and gotten the diagnosis, that something catastrophic would have happened to him, but I can't say with 100% certainty that it would not have happened to him. So as a mother, that's enough for me to know without a shadow of a doubt that I did the right thing by having the ECG. Now, it's my understanding that he is one of 8 students in Brevard Public Schools who may have been saved by this screening. So my fear is if it is not mandatory, parents will check that box and opt out, like I probably would have if I'm honest. I did not realize that I had the option to opt out. And thank goodness I did not know that, because something could have happened to my son. So it's, again, my fear that the next parent up here to discuss this down the road may be here because their outcome was not as positive as mine. They may have checked that box and opted out and ended up with a catastrophic event. And I would hate to see that would happen to any child or any family. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spratt. Patty Dunn?
I have copies of everything for the 6 board members. Okay. So, hi, my name is Patty Powell Dunn, and I would like to address the issue of Rockledge High School and its new primary choice of color for the new uniforms, football, cheerleading, band, etc. First, let me give you a little history of myself. and Rockledge High School. I moved to Rockledge in 1966 and attended Gulfview Elementary, Kennedy Middle School, and graduated in 1977 from Rockledge High. I was a gymnast on the RHS gymnastics team and was a cheerleader for 3 years, captain my senior year. I have two brothers that also graduated from RHS in 1971 and 74, as well as my father was chairman of the school board from 1994 through 2002, after retiring as a teacher and a coach from Titusville High School. For those of you that do not know the history of Rockledge High School, of how Rockledge High School became the Rockledge Raiders with the colors of Columbia blue and silver, let me share that history with you. During the school year of 1969 and 70, the then Cocoa High students that would be staying for the new Rockledge High School were asked to submit suggestions for a mascot along with school colors. They narrowed it down to the top 3, and the students were permitted to vote on both, which is how we became the Rockledge Raiders with Columbia blue and silver as our school colors. My brother was one of many students that voted for both the school mascot and school colors. School mascots and school colors are a tradition. While the school mascot became a tradition in 1908, the school colors actually became a tradition as early as the 1890s. School colors are often worn to build morale among teachers and students and as an expression of school spirit. I have a printed picture I would like you to share with all of you so you are able to see what RHS uniforms consist of at our football events at Rockledge High School school colors at the current time, which is having our color primarily black. I have been given quite a few excuses from an RHS teacher and the RHS athletic director. It's the new generation, it's what the students wanted, Columbia blue is hard to find, Columbia blue is too expensive, a lot of excuses. What happened to Raider pride? True Raiders bleed Columbia blue. We are not the Cocoa Tigers. We are not the Merritt Island Mustangs. We are the Rockledge Raiders, Columbia blue and silver. The next school year will be the class of 2020-2021, which will also be the 50th year anniversary for Rockledge High School and the 50th year RHS class reunion. I'm asking the school board to reverse the decision of Rockledge High School utilizing black as a primary school color and go back to our Raider Pride tradition of Columbia blue and silver. I'm not sure if that's in your realm, but I've had a lot of responses and a lot of people are pretty upset about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Sullivan? Mr. Colucci, if you could give me just a minute, I'm going to ask Dr. Sullivan a couple questions about school colors if I can. You're going to talk to them? Oh, I wanted to understand just for myself real quick.
From Dr. Sullivan.
From Dr. Sullivan. I'm sorry. From Dr. Sullivan. I'm asking her a couple questions.
She's right here, she'll talk to you.
I'm sorry if I'm being confusing. Dr. Sullivan is the head of our secondary leading and learning, the lady 2 rows behind you.
She's a Cocoa Tiger, by the way. I'm just letting you know she's a tiger.
Have we changed the school colors or they just added black? I'm curious about that for myself. Oh. Okay, I was just curious on how that, I know even at Satellite, which made me crazy because I went to Satellite and it was always red and silver and white and it was so pretty. And then my son now was at Satellite last year and their away uniforms, black everywhere. And so it must be a thing. We never had black in them and it doesn't go with the pretty silver and red, I felt like, but It must just, I don't know. Dr. Sullivan can help you if she's right behind you. Can talk to you. I think we have 2 more speakers coming up on the same issue, though. Mr. Colucci, sorry about that.
He's wearing Rockledge. You're wearing blue?
My name is Anthony Colucci. I'm the president of the Brevard Federation of Teachers. Tonight I wanted to read an article to you that appeared in Forbes.com. It's called "We Need to Stop Talking About the Teacher Shortage." And we have nearly 100 vacancies in our district, thousands of vacancies across the state, and there are hundreds of thousands of students in Florida without a certified teacher in front of them. News of a teacher shortage across the nation has been pummeling us for years now, right up through a story yesterday in the Panama City News-Herald about an extreme teacher shortage. Fewer students in teacher prep programs, thousands of unfilled teacher vacancies in state after state, but we need to stop calling it a teacher shortage. You can't solve a problem with the wrong diagnosis. If I can't buy a Porsche for $1.98, that doesn't mean there's an automobile shortage. If I can't get a fine dining meal for $1, that doesn't mean there's a food shortage. And if appropriately skilled humans don't want to work for me under the conditions I've set, that doesn't mean there's a human shortage. Calling the situation a teacher shortage suggests something like a crop failure or a hijacker grabbing truckloads before they can go to market. It suggests that there simply aren't enough people out there who could do the job. There is no reason to believe that is true, but pretending that is true sets up justification for a variety of bad solutions to the shortage. Since there aren't enough teachers, the reason goes, then we might as well let any warm body run a classroom. Some states have adopted the idea of letting any person with any college degree take charge of a classroom. Computer-based learning systems are pitched in part as a way to solve the shortage of live humans to do the job. In some areas, charter schools have a particularly hard time filling positions with certified teachers, and so legislatures like the one in New York, instead of saying, well, you'd better bend to free market forces and make a better offer to change the rules so that charters can hire folks who have no teaching credentials. Some folks have suggested that a single super teacher could handle an auditorium full of students or be piped into multiple distant classrooms via internet without any loss of the quality that made them super. Something of these choices are less than optimal. All of those solutions rest on the premise that there just aren't enough qualified human teachers in the world, that the magic teacher tree hasn't borne enough fruit. Given that premise, this all seems like ways to address a problem, even if it means settling for less than high-quality teachers all students deserve. But if we assume there are plenty of qualified people who could choose to enter a classroom and stay there for a career, then we realize that we are dealing with an entirely different problem. Students who could choose to become teachers are not choosing to do so. People who could choose to stay in the classroom are instead engaging in a slow-motion strike, an extended exodus, and our real problem is how to attract and retain those people. Money is obviously an issue, as witnessed by a year's worth of teachers can't live on a single teacher's salary stories, but over the past couple of decades, teachers have also suffered a steady drumbeat of disrespect, the repeated refrain that U.S. schools are failing and terrible, and accountability movement that is more about threats than support. The rise of reforms like Common Core and high-stakes testing have meant the loss of professional autonomy. The rise of alternative pathways.
Mr. Colucci.
I just got 2 paragraphs. Okay, well, it's we need to stop talking about the teacher shortage. It's on Forbes.com.
Thank you so much, sir. Our next 3 speakers are Daphne Adamson James, Jennifer Oliu, and Latrina Bartel. If Miss Addison James, if I've got that right, I'm okay.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Daphne Adamson James. Obviously, I'm here to represent.
Talk close to the mic, yeah.
Sorry. I'm here also to speak about the school color change of being a primary color of black versus the traditional colors of Columbia blue, silver, and accent with red. I'm here tonight as a Rockledge High School alumna, a proud parent of 3 Rockledge High School graduates who are now also alumni. In all probability, my grandson and my grandchildren will be future Rockledge High School graduates, and they too will become alumni. I am also here as a rental agent for a community venue that hosts many school functions to include Rockledge High School. I will be celebrating my 40th year high school reunion this November with my former 1979 Rockledge High School classmates. My parents relocated to Rockledge, Florida in 1977. I began my sophomore year at Rockledge High School. I proudly adopted Columbia blue, silver, and red as my new high school colors. My children have also proudly adopted those colors. I became an enthusiastic Rockledge Raider. We are unsure as to how or why this change was initiated or how it evolved to the primary color now of black. It is quite perplexing since a Google inquiry for Rockledge High School clearly indicates that the school colors are Columbia blue and silver. The Florida High School Athletic Association website reflects that Rockledge High School colors are Columbia blue and silver, which denotes a last update of March 26, 2019. Max Preps, a website developed to track high school sports, which includes videos, rankings, top plays, etc., also shows that Rockledge High School colors are Columbia silver and scarlet. As a secondary concern, our mascot, a Raider, has also seemingly disappeared and has been replaced with the word rock. Mascots stand for school ideas. Education institutions are foundational to communities. The citizens in surrounding areas often look to schools to honor the heritage of the city and the town. This is why mascots often rally students together, to stand together, and to stick together. They make students and all of us feel that we belong to something bigger. Within the community, schools are a driving force in maintaining pride and involves everyone's efforts. This is not just about a color choice or a change in those colors. This is about tradition. This is about pride. I had these instilled in me by my Rockledge High School faculty and administration 40 years ago. My 3 children did as well. They had a principal who instilled pride in them, their Rockledge High School classmates, and their families. A common expression existed amongst them. There are 2 kinds of people, those who are Raiders and those who want to be Raiders. In addition, we adopted the expression, we bleed Raider blue. Our school colors should be represented in our school uniforms, our apparel, our memorabilia. The colors represent way more than just colors. We should be proud to show our colors and wear them with pride. That should be the generation thing to pass on. Years out of school, people will rarely remember what the final scores were for the homecoming football games, but they will always remember their school colors and mascots. Alumni carry these images and memories with them for the rest of their lives, as I'm sure our board members tonight here have such fond memories and remember their school colors. Excuse me. There's only a few of us here tonight, but there's many that are concerned about this. And there's scores of people who would be willing to express their concerns. We respectfully request that our concerns be placed on the Brevard County Board agenda so that those people can have the opportunity to express those concerns. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Next is Jennifer Oliu. Did I really?
Hello, my name is Jennifer Oliu. I'm a 20-year resident of Rockledge and a parent of a 2017 Rockledge High graduate. Rockledge High is about to celebrate its 50th year. School pride plays such an important role in what students can achieve. Students need to be excited about their accomplishments, whether it's in the classroom, on the field, on the stage, down the alley, off the tee. You get what I mean. Students want to be part of something big, something exciting. They want to be themselves, yet be part of a community. I believe the school colors are the foundation of that pride. That's what sets us apart from the rest. Bleeding Raider blue, wearing Raider blue with pride, so that no matter where we are, people know who we are. We are Raider Nation. We should be instilling tradition into our students. Tradition is something that most young people don't consider. They haven't lived long enough to know true tradition. They may consider what's trendy or what they think is cool or tough. Teach camaraderie and teamwork, which has a positive impact on morale and performance. Wearing black isn't going to do that for you. It's the leaders of the school's job, in my opinion, to, lost my, I had to look up, didn't I? It's the leaders of the school's job, in my opinion, to keep within the official school colors. And changing the athlete's uniform is like changing the school colors. We have athletes everywhere, every week, representing our school within the county and beyond. Many colors have been slipped in over the years. We have red, gray, black. Hello, what team is that in the black uniform? Is it Cocoa, Palm Bay, Merritt Island? When I go to a Rockledge High game, I expect to see Columbia blue. And personally, if I don't, it's not as exciting for me and it's disappointing. School colors can't be something that changes with the times. They shouldn't be something that just the athletes decide on, or the athletic director or coaches for that matter. The colors chosen for this school are instilled in this community, and I know that there are a lot of people besides me that would be up in arms knowing that our colors are now more black than they are blue. Please assist us in making sure the Rockledge High tradition of Columbia blue is not forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you. Have you all spoken with Mr. Merrill? Is that the principal, I think, at Rockledge? Have you guys met with him about this?
Yes, I did. I called Rockledge High School and I asked to speak to Mr. Hines. And I was speaking to the secretary and she asked me if I was a parent or whatever, and I said I'm an alumni. She said, can I ask what you're calling for? So I gave her the thick rundown, school colors, yada yada. She said, okay, somebody will get back with you. And that happened to be the athletic director, who definitely let me know that it was his decision to make. It's not your decision, the school board's. That it's today's generation.
Okay.
He kept telling me about a school in Georgia that they, the school that they just played in Georgia, they had on black, and I kept telling it, which wasn't their school colors, and I kept telling them, I don't care about the school in Georgia, I care about Rockledge High School in Brevard County.
Okay, let's get you with Dr. Sullivan. And Dr. Sullivan, if you can connect them with Mr. Merrill, and maybe you all can sit down as a community with the principal and have this community
Can I-
discussion together.
That's just real quick. Is he officially changing it through, is Mr. Merrill changing the official color through? It's just that they're using more black than blue.
Majority black. If you look at
Right.
the picture,
No, I saw it. As a coach, I remember we did that at Space
that's
Coast
an
where they,
awful lot of black for Columbia Blue.
right. No, I just wanted to make sure, because I was going to say there's FHSA rules that you have to have on your jersey the colors of your school somewhere, so it's not an official. Now, did I hear you say that they're changing the graduation gowns from blue to black?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I do have one more thing though, is the letter jacket.
Mhm.
They're being purchased from a company called Hess that's in like South Dakota or North Dakota. And they are, I have pictures on my phone, because I just got them. They are, not a Columbia blue, but a blue with black sleeves.
Is that the picture that you had in there? I think I saw.
I have it in my phone.
Okay. All right.
But Al's Trophy Shop, who we have done business
Local.
with, my
Yep,
brothers
Randy
played
at Al's.
Little League at, when they were 10 years old,
Yeah.
who also sells them, that our
I-
school is not purchasing them.
Yeah, and I
They're
think-
gray and blue.
I think we all agree. I know Randy at Al's. I think the best thing to do is exactly what Madam Chair said, is to get a hold of him, have a community meeting, and Ms. Sullivan's going to set that up. And I wish you good luck and let us know how it goes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Our next three speakers are Latriona Bartel. Did I get that right? Latriona Bartel. She'll be followed by Elizabeth Kofer, and then Vanessa Skipper.
Good afternoon. Like she said, my name is Letriana Bartel, and I'm here as a parent, and I'm also speaking on behalf of Who We Play For. I'm going to tell you about my family's journey and the role that Who We Play For played in it. My son, Tyler Jackson, Tyler is a 12-year-old. He attends Stone Magnet Middle School, and on June 12th, we attended the ECG testing at Palm Bay High School. On the 19th, we got the results back that he had an abnormal ECG. Sean Sema, who I just met today, contacted me immediately, was very supportive, asked me what he needed to do, and could he help me with appointments or whatever. But you know, as a parent, I was on top of that, and I just want to say how he was so supportive. In this day and time, it's very good to see that strangers take an active role in caring about someone else who they don't even know. But anyway, like you said, we had several cardiologist appointments. My son went to see an electrocardiologist, and he was diagnosed with Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. We immediately, the doctor gave us a date, which was on the 29th of August. He had a catheter ablation. This past Friday, on the 6th, he went back for his follow-up. He got a clean bill of health. And like I said, the whole time, Sean Sema, from Who We Play For, supported me, called me, contacted me, anything. And like I said, in this day and time, that's so rare. But what I'm saying is, like I said, when I first got the email about the ECG testing, I contacted some other friends who had kids who were participating in sports, and a lot of them did not even receive the email for whatever reason. But some of them said they were going to opt out, which I have no reason why they would have opted out, because you know this is concerning your child's health, which everybody, you know, is everybody's decision what they decide to do. But I can't give this organization enough praise for helping me. And like the parent said before, I can't say for sure what would have happened or what will happen to my son, but I know they helped me realize that it was a problem, and I sought out and it was resolved. Like I said, his surgery was successful. Hopefully he can live a full life without any heart issues or whatever. But I really appreciate Brevard County doing this testing, and I really think it should be mandatory. Like the parent before said, that there really shouldn't be an issue of parents having to opt out. And I just thank you guys for doing this, because without this testing, without this organization, I wouldn't have known my son had a heart condition. And I just want to thank you guys and thank Who We Play For all their support and all their efforts. And again, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bartel, and congratulations to your son for a clean bill of health.
Sean, how many screenings did you do in the last year? No, you. Like, how many of the locations? I mean, you are always at those locations. I mean, every time there's a picture, Sean's in it. I mean, you had to have been at least at the last 30 or 40 of them. I mean, it's ridiculous. I wanted to take a second and just say thank you for everything you do, because you literally are a force of nature that drove this, you know, CPR and everything else, and you deserve so much credit, along with Who We Play For. But I did want to take it. I see you over there, and I just wanted to take a second and say thank you, because your commitment to these kids is selfless, and it's amazing. So thank you. That's all. I just want to say that.
Next up is Elizabeth Kofer.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Kofer, and I'm here also to support Who We Play For and the ECG program. I'm a parent and an employee of Brevard County Schools, and I don't have anything prepared because I spent all day in the classroom and then coaching chair and then rushing here. My story's similar. My son is also 12. Who has a heart problem at 12? Seriously. Since 4 years old, he's played baseball, he's played football, he has just played. He's that all boy. My husband has coached him. I didn't want to do an ECG. Who's got time for that? Oh, but it's going to be mandatory in the spring. Oh, my kid's in 7th grade. He wants to run track. I better do it. I don't have time at Christmas to worry about it. I better do it now. Within 3 business days, no more is called. Your kid can't do anything until he sees us. He has a scrimmage tonight. We're in Little League All-Stars. We're in postseason. We're going to sectionals. Nope. No practice, no game, no running, no trampoline. Have you met my kid? The kid was scared. I know there's people who get flagged that are scared, and it turns out they don't need surgery, but they need to get checked. Those parents deserve to know that their kid has potential for something to go wrong and to get that follow-up care. This is not standard procedure with our pediatricians. It's not standard procedure with our physicals for sports. But I'll tell you what, you get a lot more benefit out of it than knocking a few knees. When the chiropractors come to the schools and run their mill. My kid, within 13 days, had surgery, and a week later was playing catcher at sectionals. My kid's not going to be a statistic because of you. How many headlines do you need? When is it enough? It shouldn't be opt out. To say in one line that they must do it and 2 subsections later or opt out, you've taken all the teeth out. All of it. In the 20 years that I've lived in this county, and almost as many as I've worked for the district, this is one of the best proactive things I have ever seen you do. Most districts are reactive, and I think if we look at our history in a lot of ways, we see that for ourselves as teachers, as board members, as we're always responding, reacting to the next crisis. You guys are preventing it. It needs to stay. People are sloppy. It wasn't going to be my kid. It wasn't my other kid. She's fine. Thank you for the deductible to be met. But people aren't going to do it. And I'm not saying you have to force them to do it, to take care of their kids. It's their kid. It's ultimately their decision. But they get to make that decision. They get to take the consequence. You don't get to play. You want to play, you follow our rules. We protect ourselves. We protect our kids. My kid is fine now. Every parent deserves to know that their kid is too. And our district deserves to protect the kids that we love. As a teacher, those kids are my kids. My cheerleaders are my cheerleaders. They're my kids. Don't mess with them. And we need to take care of our population. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I? Hey, you guys, I want to say one thing. The lady in the back, Miss Moore, probably deserves a whole lot more credit than we do for this, because we just kind of said we want to do this. Miss Moore, can you stand up real quick so they can identify you if they ever have any questions? But she's the one that made it happen and put the glue together and fought and drove, you know, and basically dealt with the athletic directors, which are like Somali warlords to deal with. And she did it. And thank you, Ms. Moore, amazing job, and we're almost there. So, sorry. They are. They are Somali warlords.
Ms. Skipper, would you like to follow that?
If I would have known so much extra time would have been allotted, I might have actually written a speech tonight. Vanessa Skipper, Vice President, Brevard Federation of Teachers. Tonight, I am just bringing you an update in case you haven't checked your openings as of late. On August 13th, 2019, we had 63 openings in the district. When I just pulled up the openings on my computer, we have 95 openings. 45 of those 95 openings are re-advertisements, so that this growth in openings is not a product of all 6-day count issues. Just counting quickly, 55 of those openings are classified as elementary, 28 as secondary. Taking from the last speaker's speech, she thanked you for being proactive instead of reactive. And I can say I've been standing at this podium since 2013, asking for action to be taken for my profession. And board meeting after board meeting, I will stand here and I will ask and I will advocate on the corners, in the classrooms, in Tallahassee, and everywhere I can for public education. But we must be proactive. And it's going to take more than what we can do this year. It's going to take a steady plan. We cannot diagnose like lions and prescribe like lambs. If you go to the doctor and you have a serious issue, they don't send you with some random antibiotic and send you home. We have a serious issue in this county. And the last part of what Anthony was going to read was kind of what I was going to say next. It talks about the rise of alternative pathways to the classroom, and any warm body will do solutions, send the message that teaching is just such a simple job that any schmo with minimal training can do it. And at this point in the school year, if it's September 10th and we have 95 openings, I'm afraid that any warm body will do, and any schmo that walks in is going to do it. In fact, looking at that number of openings, it pains me to think of the number of children we have sitting in our classrooms right now without a certified school teacher. There is a chemistry position at Merritt Island High School that is a re-advertisement. There are positions at schools that never have openings. This is a local problem, it's a state problem, it's a national problem, but let's brag about how we in Brevard are number one in fixes for the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Skipper. Our last speaker for the evening is Mr. Bradley.
Mr. Bradley.
We're
okay?
glad
She okay?
to see you, Mr. Bradley. We're sorry to hear about your wife.
You know what? God is good all the time. We could be here just like those people in the Bahamas. And don't take it for granted. You know, every time I get on the internet and I get to looking at things, I think, I don't really understand. My daughter goes to Atlantis Elementary School. There's about 5 or 6 schools that are identical to those schools, 78,000 square feet. They were all built about the same time. Now, do you know what a utility bill is? Is that like your garbage, your electric, and all that thing? So when I look on the list, if I see a school with a utility bill and it's got a real cheap utility bill compared to the other schools, I would think if a dog don't bite, don't kick it. So what I did, I made a sheet out here. I went down through some schools and I took the students and the utility bill. So if you got 100 students and their electric bill is $100, it costs them $1 to go to school, right? Is that legitimate? We've got schools in West Melbourne. If you get your pen pencil out, the utility bill is $437,000, $437,685. There's only 853 students, which figures out it cost $513 a year for that kid to go to that school. Is that logical? Palm Bay High School costs $385 a year for that child to go to school. Some of the newer schools like Bayside, $254. Now we got some schools here. Johnson. It was built in 1965. It's 9 acres. And they're spending $3 million on it. And it's over 50 years old. Why are we spending $3 million on a school that's 3 years old, 54 years old? It don't make sense to me. Now, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But you spent over $1 million on Atlanta School, and then they reinvented the wheel, but the wheel wouldn't go when school started, so they had to re-engineer it to get it going. Now, all it needed was a cooling tower, and they reinvented the whole energy management system, the fan that blows the air into school. Now, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley.
That's the reason why we don't have any money for the teachers.
We'd like to thank all of our speakers this evening. Does any board member have anything else they would like to add or respond to?
Ms. Deskovich, I'd like to take the opportunity to share and thank Ms. Skipper's comments about being proactive, and I do want to share a bit of a unique proactive opportunity that we are taking advantage of. This year, we launched the second Teacher Preparation Academy in one of our high schools down at Bayside High School. We have the academy at Space Coast Junior High, and in fact, last year, all of our students who took the paraprofessional exam passed it. We had a 100% pass rate. I recently provided a letter of support and recommendation to Eastern Florida State College, who is making application to the DOE to have a formal 4-year teacher preparation program within Eastern Florida State College. If you remember, we've actually made it part of our legislative priorities for this year. I've already spoken to Senator Wright and other delegates about their support, as well as our lobbyists in Tallahassee, to support Eastern Florida having that program. Part of it came from my visiting schools last year and just being, struck by how many teachers were Brevard students, and they've come back to our community. And I said, we really have our own feeder opportunity right here. Talked to Dr. Sullivan about the opportunity, and she went to work right away and worked with staff with Bayside, and very excited about building that pipeline from our schools to Eastern Florida back into our schools. Met with Dr. Linda Miedema, who's, I'm going to get her title wrong, Dr. Sullivan, Vice President of all the academics at Eastern Florida. We met a few months ago, and I said, Dr. Miedema, if we can get the program approved at Eastern Florida State College, you have my guarantee that we will build the premier pipeline for teacher preparation in the state, and we're committed to making it a model program. So just wanted to share that we know that we've got to look for other opportunities, and we're pursuing those right here in Brevard, and we want to keep our great kids right here and give them that opportunity. So had to share that.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Ms. Belford?
Thank you for that information, Dr. Mullins. I think it's very important for everyone to know. Would you also mind sharing, we have embarked on a bit of a different process this year as far as collaborative work to identify things that we can do with regard to recruitment and retention in Brevard County, the work groups and pulling in some focus groups and that sort of thing. I think that's good for others to know. I know we have discussed it internally. There's been a little bit of discussion, but if you wouldn't mind just giving, a couple words about what's going on there.
Yeah, Dr. Theddy is going to be much better versed at it than I am, but recruitment and retention was a priority for us last year. It continues to be. We have reinitiated our relationship with other universities across the state. We actually do public records now to know who the formal education students are that are coming out of the programs. We solicit their interest for Brevard. We've reinitiated our relationship with Troops to Teachers program. We've got work groups that come together and continually look at opportunities to find new and creative ways. We're trying to publicize and market more the opportunities within our community that make resources available to teachers. The resources for just through the Community Credit Union, which, as you know, is a great partner with us, from mortgage assistance to banking resources as well. So we are canvassing the whole landscape of what is available for our teachers, both from a recruitment standpoint, but also from a retention standpoint, as we tackle this challenge that we have across the nation. But you know, as no denying, it's a challenge across the state.
Thank you.
It might be, you know, I'm going to put Dr. Fetty on the spot. Perhaps we provide the board a short presentation at the next board meeting of all of the recruitment efforts and retention efforts.
Thank you, sir. This moves us on to the consent agenda. Dr. Mullins.
There are 9 agenda items under this category, 2 with prior information.
Thank you. Does any board member wish to pull any items?
Hang on, I'm having some technical difficulties.
Her computer did that thing that you used to do where like just cancel out, can't do anything, she's gonna log back in. Might be the rest of us, I don't know.
Ms. Campbell, do you know if you wanted to pull a consent item?
Like people don't really get it.
I did it before.
It's
the
all of us.
agenda. It's over here.
Click on an item.
I had to re-sign.
Should be a star somewhere.
Yeah.
I had to log out and read it.
Oh, there it is. The agenda.
It wouldn't let me see anything.
Here, mine's a star, yours.
It wouldn't let me back out.
Yeah, we all went down.
Yeah, I love
Click on
that.
the link
I
and
love
see if
that
it'll
girls.
open it.
Oh, me one of these?
Yeah, any of it. Yeah, you're down.
You did.
You got logged out too?
Everybody did?
Oh, man, I had it on my, I don't know, did I? No, I'm here. I'm solid.
Click on any link and see if it'll come up, Mount.
It'll kick you out and you can go log in.
Nope, I've been playing on it. So
Okay,
I'm-
he's good.
I'm straight.
Okay, I'm good now.
Okay, does any,
You said?
you just have to log back
Do you
in.
want to pull anything on consent? No, I don't want to. Okay, so you
Okay.
can go ahead and.
We can be
While
moving
you're
along
getting
while
in.
everybody logs back in. Okay, so we do not want to pull any items off of consent. So what are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Belford, second by Mr. Susan. Please vote when you can.
Oh, now I can't vote. Great. Go ahead.
Can we take a voice vote?
We take a voice vote, Pam. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Or did you restart the whole computer?
You restarted the whole computer?
Just taking his time.
Jackie's coming to the rescue. You probably can't.
You can't find the
log
hand
in
crank
to
on the computer, Jack.
I think we're okay.
Can I log in?
Oh.
Or do I need you to log me in?
Oh, she logged out of the computer completely.
She pulled the plug.
Okay, Jackie, will you help Cheryl? I'm going to move forward with the public hearing. Are you okay with that, Ms. McDougall? You can follow along? Okay. Do I need to? We are now going to recess the school board meeting and convene the final public hearing for the 2019-2020 proposed millage rate and tentative budget.
had multiple workshops and meetings with the board, and we conclude tonight with presenting the proposed millage levies and final tentative budget. Our topics tonight will review the enrollment projections, taxable property values, proposed millage, proposed budget, and our next steps, which will occur tomorrow. Our student membership is for the district sitting at about 69,000. Our charter schools are sitting at about 7,000. We have seen, unfortunately, a slight decline in the district traditional school enrollment and an increase in our charter schools. Now, membership differs from our FTE in that membership is the student who shows up even for one period. FTE actually looks at them as being what portion of a full-time student attending a full day. So an example of a difference would be a homeschool student who attends one class at one of our high schools. They are counted as one for a membership, but 1/6 for an FTE. In this case, our FTE falls slightly below membership. We're sitting at about 65,000 for traditional schools and about 6,000 for public. The trend has been consistent with membership with our FTE. Taxable property values increased a little over 7% this year, slightly below the average of the last three years, which were above 8%, but still very positive growth for us. In 18-19, in 17-18, we topped our high of the 10-year period from 2009 and 10 and continue to grow well. Our proposed millage rates that the board will be considering tonight include our required local effort, commonly known as RLE. This is a millage that the board is required by statute to levy in order to receive state funding for our schools. The millage this year has dropped below 4 mills. It was just over 4 mills in 18-19. This year it is 3.83 mills, and it does make up 63.1% of our millage. For those in the audience or watching at home, 1 mill goes against $1,000 of property value. Our second millage you'll be considering tonight is our discretionary local effort, 0.748 mills. This is the max by statute we're allowed to levy. It provides $448.14 per FTE, or $32,641,000. It is subject to compression by the state, meaning the state guarantees if we levy the full discretionary millage to receive at least $555.45 per FTE. As I mentioned, we are below that number, so the state has provided us an additional $107.31 per FTE, or $7,816,100. If we did not levy the full 0.748, we would not receive the $7.8 million. Our last millage is our local capital improvement millage, commonly known as LCI. It's 1.5 mills. That brings into our district $65,456,000. Out of that funds first come our debt service of $36,613,000. Maintenance transfers to the general fund of 8.3, property insurance of 4.9, leaving $15,600,000 for our capital needs prior to anticipated increases or additional percentages we believe we will see for those who pay over the 96% we're allowed to budget. Our proposed millage, as you can see, the total levy has decreased again for many years. Since 2011-12, it has decreased 2.026 mills, or almost 25%. The total levy since 15-16 has decreased 1.291 mills, or 17.5%.
The decrease from 15-16 results from a legislative change in calculating the RLE, taking it to what's called the rollback rate. They do it for across the state and that lowers our millage. I'll talk a little bit more about rollback rate specifically for this year in a moment. Through the TRIM, or Truth in Millage Act, which is the statute that governs how we do our budget process, we are required to calculate the rollback rate and then present it to the public versus our proposed millage. And what the rollback rate is essentially the millage rate on the current year property value that would obtain us the same dollar amount we received in the prior year. So to receive the exact same revenue from ad valorem, what would that millage require? If that proposed or that rollback rate is less than our proposed millage, we are required to report a tax increase, even though this year, as in the past 3 years, our millage has actually gone down. What is driving that increase we're required to report is the increase in property values. This schedule is what we're required to present to you tonight and report to the public. Our 2019-20 proposed millage is 3.838 for required local effort, 0.748 for local discretionary, and capital outlay at 1.5 for a total of 6.086 mills. Our 2018-19 rolled back rate is 3.8452, 0.71, and 1.423. This for 5.979. Our total millage proposed is greater than the rolled back rate by 0.1070 mils or 1.79%. As a result, even though you are not raising the tax levy tonight, we are required to report an increase in taxes according to the truth in millage. Just for further clarification for the public watching at home, the impact of that tax change, a primary homeowner who owned a home in 2018-19 valued at $100,000, they would only receive the property value increase of our Save Our Homes cap, which is 1.6%, or in this case, $1,600. As a primary homeowner, they're allowed one homestead exemption towards the school taxes, so that's a reduction of $25,000. Taxable value of property being $76,600. The taxes that they paid on the tax rate we had in 18-19 was $472.43. The taxes proposed for 2019-20 they would pay $466.19. So the primary homeowner will actually see a tax decrease, and that is a result of our Save Our Homes statute that was brought into effect many years ago. Where the actual increase will come in this example is someone who owns a second home. This could be a member who travels here in the winter and owns a home here in the winter, spends the summers in North. Their home value could also be $100,000, but because it's not their primary home, they would have seen the full increase of 7.61, taking their property value to $107,610. Only primary homeowners get the homestead exemption. Their taxes paid in 2018-19 was $629.90. Their proposed taxes for 19-20 would be $654.91, and they would receive an increase of $25.01 driven by the increase in their property value. Our proposed tentative budget that you will be considering tonight is made up of our operating fund, which is the operations of our schools and district, special revenue fund, which is our federal grants, the debt service fund, which pays our debt service on the certificates of participation, our capital outlay projects funded through sales tax,
LCI, and some other minor revenues we receive. In addition to those, we have our enterprise fund, which is our after-school program, and our internal service fund, which is our internal self-insured funds for insurances such as health insurance, workers' comp, and general liability. Our total budget for the operating fund, our fund balance as of June 30th, we anticipate at this point is $71 million. Looking down at the breakout below, you see how that is broken out in the categories we're required by GASB to report. I'd like to point out to everyone that they can look at the details in the budget book, which is on page 115, and it will break out for you in detail as we've presented in the past, that breakout. There's a number of carry-forwards, encumbrances, and money that the board has set aside to work with this year that are mixed in the $54 million. Our total government budget fund balance at the end of the year is anticipated to be $154,532,372. We're also bringing to you our 10-year capital outlay plan. You should have a copy at your seat of the full plan, and there is one available for the public at the table. This is a summary of our plan for 2019-20. We're bringing in a beginning fund balance of $138,681,000, mainly driven by sales tax and some LCI. Our revenue anticipations is $132,372,000 with planned expenditures of $198,985,000. Anticipated ending fund balance to carry forward just over $72 million. One reason we see a large fund balance at the beginning of the year is there are a number of projects that occur in the summer that facilities, Ms. Han and her team, are trying to work on while students are not in the classroom. That our end of year occurs right in the middle of that process. So while they're working on the projects, begin them in June, we close them out, they haven't spent all the money, and then we carry it forward for them to finish spending it. So it always looks like we've got a whole lot of money we're not doing anything with, when in reality, Ms. Han and her team are working really hard to spend as much of it as they can during the summer so we're not interrupting learning in our classrooms. The rest of the years are forecasted out. Our revenues, we've been fairly conservative in most of the years. We've looked at approximately a 6% increase in revenues in the next year and then dropped it down to a 1%, waiting to see what's going to happen with the economy. Our next steps is notification of final millage and budget to the Florida Department of Education, the Florida Department of Revenue, and the Brevard County Tax Collector. The next portion of the budget will be the appropriation of some of the fund balance line items that I mentioned that can be found on page 115 in our September 30th budget amendment. These include state categoricals, school operations, encumbrances, additional carry-forwards, and medical insurance premiums. Anyone wishing to obtain additional information on our budget can contact my office at the information below, on the screen. We'll be happy to provide them a copy of the budget book or answer any questions they may have. That concludes my presentation for tonight. Can I answer any questions for the board?
Is this where I should ask questions on this stuff?
I
No, I'll wait. I'll go last. That way, if anything gets done, I can cross it off.
I just have one question that hasn't already been answered up until this point, because I'm just realizing it because I just got the handout. The 10-year capital outlay plan in the presentation totals are different than the 10-year capital outlay in this? Was
That
in
is
this
my
19?
error. When we updated the presentation after we made that last adjustment, we talked to you. I did not fix that presentation. I'm accountable for that.
So this here
The
is
plan is correct.
Is the true.
We'll update that and get another copy to Ms. Escobar so we have the right numbers out on the agenda.
So on our agenda tonight, what is attached? I need to probably look that.
Well, the presentation is not what you're voting on. The attachments are going to be the budget documents and the levies and proposed millage. You don't actually vote on the capital outlay separate, it's just part of the budget.
Is it in an attachment out of these, 19
No,
through
it's not.
33? So it's not on here at all?
No, it's not. It's only listed in summary in the presentation as information.
October too.
I'm sorry, Mr. Susan? No. Okay. So is the capital plan, I just want to make sure we are voting on exactly what we have.
Now, the capital plan is not going to match identical to that. This is a plan of how we're going to spend the expenditures. When you look at that, you're going to see things much more lumped together.
Okay.
And they're not going to come out looking quite like this. This is a plan for expenditures, doesn't necessarily match the budget that we have prepared. We're required to provide you a capital plan for the next 10 years. Ms. Hand's group provides you the 5-year facility plan, and then we actually budget all of the money in the budget. So you're voting on the budget tonight, not the capital outlay plan.
So you are, who keeps turning me off?
I don't think I have that control.
I think I have the control, so I'm trying to. You are required by statute to provide the 10
Yes.
year, and you're required to provide it with the budget? Or we just chose to do it
No, we're not required
tonight?
to do it with the budget. In the past, we have not. We've just added it to our budget process to assist Ms. Han in her process of preparing the facilities 5-year capital plan, which comes a month after this.
Okay. That's all I have for now. Does anyone other than Mr. Susan have questions? He wants to go last. Ms. Belford? You're good? Yours were in a lengthy email.
Yes, I already bombarded with questions, so I apologize.
Okay, Mr. Susan, the floor is yours.
Penny, would you rather me ask you the questions about the budget here or in a later action item?
Whichever you prefer, sir.
Okay, easy enough. So I just got just a couple of quick questions. On page 54 of the budget book, it's our medical trust fund, and I just had 2 clarifying questions. If you look at all the previous budgets on page 53, 52, and going back, there's a difference column. But when we get to the medical, it stops. I didn't know if there was a reason for that. For whatever reason, it just stops. And it doesn't, the last 2, it's not on there. I didn't know if that's just left off or what it was.
I don't have an explanation for that.
Okay.
Karen, was that just it's just an oversight in
Okay.
building the presentation.
And then I just did want to say, we budgeted at 76 million last year, and in that medical, we actually came back at 70 million, which was less than around 6 million. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then that went into the restricted trust fund balance, is what I'm seeing there, correct?
Yeah, it goes into the restricted on the internal service, yes.
Okay, and that's the 17. So instead of having 10, we spent 6 less and we're at 17. Okay.
And that is our goal, to reduce those expenditures so we can keep our trust fund in good health.
Perfect. Okay, and then if you move, did anybody else have a question on any of that? If you move on to page 59, there was an anomaly on there that I saw, debt service. It says that transfers out in 2016-17 were 90 million in expenditures. Do you see that graph at the bottom of the page? Page 58, I apologize. It's right here. There seems to be a huge transfer out of over 90 million. I didn't know what that was.
Oh, that was the year we did our refinancing. So if you, I can't remember if you came on board
It was
the
right
midst of
after I
that.
came on board,
Right.
we redid
So-
a bunch of.
Right, that is the year we refinance. So as a result, when we take bonds and refinance them, we pay them off and we gain revenue and reset it up. And that is why you're seeing that 90 million. We had $90 million worth of bonds that we refinanced. There were 4 series that we refinanced this year. As a reminder, we saved the district $10 million in interest over the remaining life. So that's why it looks like a strange anomaly, because
what
we
it
did
was.
refinancing.
Because I got a call on that one. That one I didn't see myself. Okay. Did anybody else have any questions on that? Are you trying to turn down the air? Are you too cold?
It's blowing like the Arctic on this end.
Okay, if we can move on to page 114.
Sorry, what page
114. One of the issues that I looked at was that how do we come up with what our future revenue sources are going to be? Like, how do we say this is how much we are going to estimate that we're going to put there? How do we come up with that figure? Like, is there a percentage? Do you guys look at, how do we do that?
Well, it depends on the type of revenue. So let's talk about our state and local revenue. That's driven by the Florida Education Finance Program, which is determined by the legislature, calculated by the Department of Education. So through that, they tell us what we are allowed to budget for state funds and the maximum we're allowed to budget for our millage. They do not let us budget 100% of the proceeds.
It's
So
like
we can't
96.
take, let's say it's $1 million of property value and $1, you can't just put in $1 million. We're only allowed to budget by statute up to 96%.
Right.
Because unfortunately, not all of our citizens pay their taxes.
So how do we do the federal one then, if that's the way it's done?
We use historical averages. That's mainly driven by our Medicaid. And so we look at what we've received in the last 3 years and estimate what we anticipate to receive. Some years we are right on, and depending on how we're doing in getting the reimbursement request in, we fall slightly behind, but it is based on historical experience.
Yeah, because I looked at the 2018-19 adopted budget. We had $2,584,386. Our actual revenue coming in was $3 million. And then this year, we put in the exact same number we put last year, $2,584,386. So we basically adopted a budget that was exactly the same amount of money from last year. We did it again this year, even though we had an increase of $500,000 in there. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
It's just averages.
We can't count on those increases,
Mhm.
and we look at a much broader than just these 4 years for the expenditures. It's all dependent on how well the paperwork is put in. The Medicaid is getting reimbursed by Medicaid for services we provide. And we just went to a whole new system, and we've had some complications with that, so we've been more
That's fine.
conservative there. If we receive $3 million, the budget will be adjusted, and it will be added into
Yeah.
the system.
Okay. And then as I was going through it, I kind of noticed trends because you were very nice about putting together in that Excel spreadsheet over our whole budget as far as what we adopt and what it is that we actually have. And I noticed just kind of a trend of we conservatively look at underfunding a lot of our revenue sources, right? And then we are estimating our actual salaries and instructions, just as a common thing that I keep seeing. Is that institutional that we do it that way? Because I think that's okay. I mean, I'm not arguing against it, but I just didn't understand the anomaly that keeps
Well,
happening.
when you consider the general accepted accounting principle of conservatism, you would be careful and not over projecting your revenues. However, on our expenditures for our salaries, we do that by actual people. So some districts will say, I have 5,000 teachers and the average salary is 48,000, boom, there's my budget. We actually look at the individuals and who is in that position, what they are paid, and the benefits they take. Vacancies are then budgeted at the average vacancy salary, which is looking back at the prior year, all of our vacancies, what they were hired in, and what is the average, plus all of the fringe, because we don't know if they'll take medical or not. That all gets added together for all of our positions. And then the automated labor actually reduces that budget by 1.2% to account for lapse that was given away in bargaining about 30 years ago. So for salaries, we are not really budgeting at 100% of all the positions. It's slightly less than that. The others, we're budgeting at what we actually expect the cost to be based on the knowledge we have at the time.
Yeah, because when I looked at our financial statements, we went from adopting 370 million for instructional. We adjusted it up to 385 in the middle of the year, and then we had actual at 375. So it's kind of this is where we think we're going to be. Let's estimate a little bit more so that we can, and then we come back underneath it.
Actually, the increase that you see typically occurs on the September 30th budget amendment, and that is carry forwards from the previous year. Even in general fund, we have grants and categoricals and funds given to us by other organizations that we are required to carry forward. Workforce funding is a very good example of that. Our ACE funding, our IB funding, and some of those different fundings actually have salary dollars in them that did not get spent in the previous year, and we are required to carry those forward. That does not occur at the adopted budget. It occurs at the first budget amendment, which will be dated September 30th.
So, did you have a question?
I'm just curious why that doesn't happen on the adopted budget as opposed to doing it via amendment.
Because we can't get the information in time for the adopted budget because we have to wait for accounting to close. Both are working at the exact same time, and so we don't necessarily have the information for the adopted budget. And this is pretty standard. In my other 3 school districts, it worked the exact same way. Adopted budget went without carry forwards, and then it came in the first budget amendment. But it's that timing of trying to close the books and create a budget all at the same time.
And for example, you just mentioned the ACE or the Cambridge, those, like I know those results didn't come out until the school year actually had started. They received them on the second week of school or the first week,
Correct.
sometime during the first or second week of school. So we didn't know those dollars, right, until.
Well, we don't know how we're going to spend them. There are some of I don't know specifically on those 2 programs, the details. I would have to refer back to Ms. Klein and Dr. Sullivan. But I do know on some of our CTE, she'll have her money, but it goes into the next year where it gets decided how it's going to be spent, how it's going to be given. But for program specifics, I'd have to ask Ms. Klein or Dr. Sullivan to speak to those.
So what I'm hearing you say is that last year we budgeted, say, $372 million for instructional salaries and benefits. At September, when we made the adjustment up to 385, that was from the carry forwards from that. So this year, we budgeted 370 million, which was $5 million less than last year. Can you explain why our actuals were $375 million, but we budgeted this year at 370? Does that, or 37, our actuals were 375, and our adopted budget was 370 million. Was there a reason we reduced our adopted budget by $5 million?
It's just based on our employees and vacancies. I believe we had a large number of retirements and terminations between the 2 years. And when you look at ours, particularly with the retirements, our higher paid employees retiring out and bringing in newer, that's the impact.
Okay, so we are actually budgeting for $5 million less than the previous year's actuals, and it was based upon the lapsed salaries and stuff like that. And if we do see any kind of an increase or a rollover, it'll be in September, and that's why that number will go up at that time.
Yes, I can guarantee you will see higher salary number go in the September budget amendment.
Okay. All right. And then from a 30,000-foot view, I've asked a couple of times about annual financial investments. Can you kind of explain that to us? because we received $2.8 million, according to our numbers today, in investments from this year, according to the document that we have. Is that budgeted at the beginning of the year? Does that get reinvested? Where does that go?
We budget a smaller amount.
was
It
like
can be
500,000,
very
I think.
volatile depending on
Sure.
what's going on in the economy. Joanne, what is the total amount of our investments? It's over 100 million, I know that. $200 million go into investments, and we have multiple different investment funds depending on the type of funding. So the general fund has one for its long-term money. The capital outlay, we put that into an investment that isn't needed for this year. Our health insurance trust, our workers' comp trust, all of those go into their own funds to gain. What most people don't understand about the way we're allowed to invest, and I should mention here, end of October, we'll be bringing a presentation to the board on investments. We're required to invest in very safe investment types, and we don't earn the type of interest you can earn as a regular individual. If I can get 40 basis points, which is 0.04, or 0.4, I'm doing good.
Right.
I can't get 3%, 5%, 10%. The other thing that occurs on this is we're required to make a market value adjustment, and that's where we see the volatile swings depending on what's going on in the economy. This past year, we've seen a stronger economy since in the last couple of years. So we've seen market values of our investments actually go up. And that's why we're seeing this. We don't want to try and budget for that because depending on what happens, we know that the Federal Reserve can meet. You can see a downturn. We recently saw some problems with the stock market exchange. It's certainly not in our wheelhouse to try and project that, so we're conservative.
Just I guess where I was going was, I noticed that the investments were on some of the funds that we're dealing with, like medical, or it was our casualty. Does that money go back into that
Yes.
trust fund?
Yes,
So if whatever
absolutely.
money we are investing from that trust fund or that pot goes back into
Absolutely.
fitting that up?
And
Okay.
they literally have their own investment account.
Right.
That money goes in. The same with our schools and their internal accounts. They have money they want to invest. It goes in and it goes, any earnings goes right back to that school.
And, okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
From another 30,000-foot view, one of the things that I read an article in the Panhandle about recently was that charter schools sometimes receive their funding at the beginning of the year, but their FTEs change by the end of the year. Can you explain, there's something there that the school district was upset about because they were doing something. Can you tell me?
And this school district in the past has complained quite a bit to the state about this. What happens is we are required to calculate what charter schools are going to receive based on the projections they give us, and we begin paying them on 1/12 payments in July. Now, what's included in that, what everyone gets upset about, is the ad valorem millage. We do not collect those dollars until December. But we are paying the charter schools not only what the state has been sending us, but their share of the ad valorem that we will not receive until December. That's been brought before our legislators. They've refused to change that. I know this district particularly led the way on that because it was a big deal, and that was during the time that we were having cash flow problems. Currently, we don't have to worry about cash flow problems, but that is an issue for us. And sometimes we do have a charter school who projects 200, but they end up with 125. And what's sad is then we have to go back and collect all of that money back from them.
That's where it was, is that they were over projecting, and then the second, so when we go to collect, we do get all of our money back. It's not that we get it back in a different amount?
No,
Okay.
we will not, we will reduce their payments to collect back what they owe us for over projections in the first half of the year.
Okay, and then I also noticed in one of them, and I apologize about not having the page number, but that $3.1 million for the insurance that we were talking about before, I thought we gave direction to put that into the insurance trust fund, but I saw it again as separate, or what are we, what's the,
The 3.1 million, remember, is to pay the premium, to add to the premium and make it whole in the general fund. It is fully budgeted on premiums in the insurance trust fund. So there's nothing to put there. The 3.1 helps to pay the premium. So in your September 30th, you will see the appropriation of the 3.1 to the health insurance premiums paid on behalf of the employees. The health insurance trust budget already expects that.
okay. And then I have a quick question on debt servicing. We had mentioned before that we wanted to get a high amount of fund balance so that we can get better interest rates. Is there a scale that says if your credit rating is this, this is the percentage that you get? Is there anything out there like that?
No, unfortunately, there's not. In most, as an individual, we know we can go to banks and see something like that, but for us, that is not the case. When we go to do a refinance or a sell, we have to place it out on the market. The individuals or institutions that are going to buy our debt looks to see what our credit rating is, and they determine what the interest rate is going to be. So very much like personal debt, if we have a very high credit rating, then they feel very assured we will pay them back than if we have a low. We're currently in the second level before the highest. We are one of the best credit ratings in the nation for school districts. But our goal, we won't have our next refinancing till 2023. Ms. Clark and I are working with our financial advisors, Jerry Ford and Associates, to try and raise that credit rating before then to help obtain at least another $10 million savings or greater.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then I just had one small one, and we had talked before about there was an anomaly where some money came out of the fund and it was for McKay scholarships. And it was inside of instructional, I think, if we were doing that correctly. And we had talked about possibly removing that and putting that.
We did
So that's
in
a
this
separate,
budget.
and we're good, and we're clear on that.
Yes, it's not included in
Perfect.
our
That was clear.
teacher salaries this year.
That was clarifying, and I have a host of emails, just like Ms. Belford, that I think I'm going to request, and that's all I have for you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless somebody has some questions.
Ms. Belford?
I just have a quick follow-up since Mr. Susan mentioned the McKay scholarships. The other one that we had talked about kind of making more transparent in process was the contracted services that we typically would include in our
Reserve units?
Well, there was a lot of discussion about, we had reserve units that we would typically transfer to contracted services, but it was, the process there was really muddy, and we weren't identifying that those were contracted services that we were paying for. We were including them in, I think, instructional salary.
Correct. We eliminated them from the reserve units and have moved or set aside the equal money to pay for the contracts as a budget item in student services and ESE support. So we have cleaned that up so it is clear. It is a line item. I can get you where that's at, or Ms. Moore could provide you more information.
So in some of the questions that I sent to you, I had asked about the decrease in number of classroom teachers. Were those the reserve units? Is that where the reserve units came from that we have directly converted into contracted services as opposed to doing the way we have in the past?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so those were regular classroom teachers, not ESE teachers that we?
No, those are ESE teachers.
So
there's also a reduction in the number of teachers due to charter schools increasing. But the teachers that were taken out of the budget were OT, PT teachers.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Belford and Ms. Zerker, correct me if I'm wrong, there should also be a reduction in some teachers as a result of the budget reductions we did last year. 16 teachers, I
Yeah,
believe. something
16,
like that.
20 teachers, I forget the exact amount, but yes.
Does that appear in the budget amendment? What, is that the September, the big adjustment in September? When did we do that? We were just
No,
looking at some of
that is included in the June 30th budget amendment as part of funding salaries. That was part of the increase when we moved from 1% to 1.6, is when we cut those, and then we cut a portion of them, then we cut the rest to make it to 2.3. So that actual change occurs in the June 30th budget amendment for 2019. I'm preparing a reconciliation on the units for you.
Thank you. Mr. Susan, you had another
Just
question?
two things going forward. Last year, we saw an increase in travel, considerable increase in travel. There's a couple other accounts that we saw some increases in. How do we stop that from, what controls could we put in place to avoid that? Does that make sense to you? Because that's something we can control.
Sure, you could at any time reduce travel,
Well-
ban travel. The travel budget is asked for by the department head and cabinet member. As part of our budget process, we do compare it to what they've actually spent in the prior years. Sometimes they have a valid reason to want to request. There's a.
And I totally understand. I'm not going after travel. I'm just saying in general, we see sometimes these accounts that all of a sudden they'll hit where the budget is, and then all of a sudden there's more that comes out, right? So in using travel as an example, it hit its max budget and then it went beyond that.
They've transferred money from other accounts within their discretionary budget to
Right.
create that. We do not give them additional money. If they decide, let's say they've budgeted $2,000 to go take 2 employees to a conference, and they decide they want to take 2 more, so they need to double it, they need 4,000. They'll look at their other discretionary accounts, supplies, overtime, capital, computers, so forth, and they decide where they want to move money into
Okay.
travel to meet that expenditure. They are not going over their total budget they've been allowed. It's just movement within the budget.
And the next thing that I had a question for is, we have our thing set up as deputy superintendents over secondary and, elementary and everything else. And what we have here is a budget that basically says instructional. How do we take and find each one of our departments within this budget? How does Stephanie Sullivan know inside her budget how it fits into here? Does that
Well,
make sense? And I'm not saying that she doesn't. I'm saying I don't know where, when you say they control their budget,
They
that's,
get monthly reports from us. Here's what your budget is. Here's what you've spent. Here's what you have encumbered. Here's what's remaining. Those are produced monthly out of the budget office. The budget office takes a look at it and then provides them, hey, you're looking like you're spending more than average here, or various things, and it goes out to them so they can keep up with what's happening with their budget.
so they have a budget in, each department has a different budget, and then it ties to the bigger budget. But like Mark Langdorf has casualty and he has medical, and you can
receive-
identify that, but you
Yeah.
can't. So I guess, is there a way to identify how theirs fits into?
It's it's done by cost center and project numbers.
Beautiful.
And so we create monthly financial statements for those. Those statements provide them the adopted budget, here's your amended budget, so they can see what changes they made.
So this is how much salary you had, this is how much salary you used, this is how much
They
capital,
They
this
don't
is how
get the
much.
salary unless it's non-automated labor, because the district controls that, but they get everything in their discretionary budget that they have control of.
Okay, capital, services, everything else.
Uh-huh.
Can we go, this is the question that I was getting to. Can we go to cost center by school? So you can go to cost center by, you can say, this school has this much payroll, and these are the positions inside there. This is-
Absolutely.
Because I know we do the capital side and a lot of the other pieces that we have here, but I just wanted to make sure we could do that by salary.
We can provide a complete budget expenditure report that includes all of their objects.
Perfect.
So
That's
it
it.
would be everything.
That's
And
all I
we
need.
do that at the end of the year in accounting as part of our cost accounting report to the state.
Beautiful. By school.
By school.
Thank you.
Every cost center,
Yeah.
every school has its own.
No, I
Ms. Zucker, I just
wanna
have
make sure.
one clarification question. The categories under federal sources for revenue, seems that there's about $1 million somewhere in other federal through state and miscellaneous federal through state. Do you have any idea what types of things are
Can you
in?
tell me what page you're looking at?
I was looking at, Ms. Belford had pulled up the budget amendment as of June 30th, 2019.
Oh, the budget amendment? I'd have to
Yes.
get my budget amendment to look
Okay.
at that. I didn't bring it up here with me.
Okay, that's fine. We were looking at we were talking earlier about the Medicaid and how
Right.
that had fluctuated, and we saw that, but then, with the other federal through state, it's so random to say, just other, I always want to know what's in there.
Oh, that is our emergency restart grant that we received as a result of, most recently from DOE. So that is $604,000 that was provided to us to reimburse us for expenditures associated with taking in students displaced from hurricanes.
Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, that one is very random. Those kind of grants don't always appear.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there was no other except for the 1 month in the amendment,
We
so I was
just
curious
got
what-
it in.
Okay, great, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Zucker. We are now to the public comment portion of our hearing. The hearing is now open for public comments. We will, in accordance with Florida law, accept the speakers in the following order. Speakers on the 2019-2020 proposed millage levy, followed by the 2019-2020 tentative budget. Is there any individual that would like to address the board on the 2019-2020 proposed millage levy? Ms. Enval, am I supposed to ask that twice, like I am?
It's usually good to ask.
Okay, it doesn't say twice in my book. I'm like, I feel like I should ask it twice. Is there any individual that would like to address the board on the 2019-2020 proposed millage levy? Is there any individual that would like to address the board on the 2019-2020 tentative budget? It is in there twice. Thanks, Pam.
You're only allowed to speak one time, right?
Mr. Colucci?
It's him, yes. I'm looking at page 115 in the budget, and I noticed that hurricane reimbursement is apparently on its way, and you've reserved it for 2020, 2021 grant-style funding for, I think, $1,340,000. So I believe that some of that is for salary, maybe 20 people, maybe 20 salaries. I'm wondering, is that amount also reflected in the salaries in the adopted budget? What I'm trying to figure out is if that is, we're paying it from this grant-style funding, but then also budgeting it in the salary piece as well. So are we paying for it twice, or think we're going to be paying for it twice? If, Penny, can you answer?
The amount of the salaries that will be released, that you will be releasing tonight from the committed, is currently in the budget. That goes up to fund that. What we're doing here, this is reimbursement from Irma, not Dorian. I want to make that clear. And this is reimbursement for shelter costs, which would not have included the regular pay that our employees receive while we're closed. This is just for the shelter costs on it. What we're reserving for is not for 1920. If you will remember, the grant-style funding that the board approved was for 3 years. This is the last year. We have a lot coming next year, including a new school. This money will allow us to push the funding of that with recurring dollars out 1 more year to 2021. So we're not duplicating anything in this budget.
So just for the public to know what those dollars are paying for in that, can you go ahead with how many social
Sure.
workers? And
16
what they-
instructional work coaches, 7 social workers, and athletic assistants for our secondary schools is what we're planning that money for moving forward.
I think what he's asking is, are those reflective in the back of this staffing plan that we have already in existence? Because the total,
Yes, for this year that the grant-style funding is paying for. And we're asking you as one of the agenda items tonight to release that money to pay for those items.
but what he's saying, so what I'm hearing you say is that when we get back to the back, which is, you know, where it says ESE cafeteria, educational services, in one of those pages, it's going to say social workers. Are what we are paying for with this grant-style funding also reflective inside of that budget, is what he's asking. I think, am I correct?
What is in the 1920 budget is reflective of the positions existing today with the funding coming from the grant-style funding,
Okay. Okay.
okay? What we're setting aside from Hurricane would be to maintain those positions 1 more year into 2021. Otherwise, the board would have to make decisions about maintaining them or how to fund them going forward.
Is that sufficient?
So, Mr. Susan, I think you understand what I'm getting at is if we're paying $338 million for salaries, I want to make sure that over $1 million for the grant-style funding is not in there as well. It's a whole different item.
Yep, and I think what she stated was that if it was $1.5 million in salary and we allotted $383 million, that the actual amount coming out of that would be $381.5 million, something like that. Got it.
So we're not double dipping, basically, is the,
Because the grant-style funding is a source of revenue. Right, and the 380 whatever million is
It's a
an
good question.
expenditure.
I mean, it's shown inside the budget. It's a good question. I like it.
Can I ask a second question?
Sure.
So I'm looking at, I don't know what page it is, organizational summary district positions, the number of classroom teachers is projected to be.
What page? What page?
I don't know, he doesn't have it.
39, are you on 39?
Summary is 39, the detail is 247.
Yeah, 39. Oh. Yeah, there you go. So I do see a reduction from 4,536 to 4,511. But so I believe you cut 17 positions last year. Okay, but then we're also saying we're taking out what was in there for contracted services. It doesn't seem that that is enough of a reduction to support both of those reductions. So the reduction of 17, a reduction in the number of students, and a reduction in the contracted services. So I guess what I'm asking is how many positions were removed for the contracted services line?
First off, it's important to note that what you're seeing here on pages 39 with the detail on 247, that is after our new staffing allocation and PAR process for this year. So we are not necessarily talking about the exact same total units from 1819. You do have some schools who earned more units, and you have some who got less, and there are some where the reserve units roll back. There were 25 units that were pulled out for the OTPT. They were OTPT units that have never been allocated as teachers and always converted over for the contract. While there were other positions that were pulled out, there were also additional positions that came into the budget due to the projected staffing at various schools.
Thank you, Ms. Zucker.
Does that answer it?
Is there any other individual that would like to address the board on the 2019-2020 tentative budget?
I have something to pass to you. Do you want, can I just?
If you can give it to the officer, please. And just for the audience and record, just state your name. if you can,
Kyle
please.
Savage, thank you.
I get a name like Savage. I got a name like Susan. Savage is cool.
No, you're okay. I provided her with one. I didn't original name, so.
We have doubles in there, guys?
Oh.
Maybe? I don't
We
know.
can share.
Are we good?
We can share.
We can share?
Or I guess she can share with
Can
Cheryl.
share? Amy, you got anything to say on the budget?
It's all good.
Okay, just checking. I didn't ask you yet.
Go ahead, sir.
So I found two interesting aspects when looking at the budget, and I looked at the actuals instead of the amended. And the first thing I would like to point out is the spending on salary by the district. When you looked at actual spending for 18-19, and you looked in the instructional, now I understand this does not include all instructional units because some are shifted into guidance counselors, media services, curriculum and development, Title I. Overall spending for the district was only $600, well, it was a little under, it was $820,000 more than it was in 17-18. The other thing I would like to point out is.
Where are you at on here that you're
I'm on the
seeing?
front page.
Front page, first two
sorry, I
columns,
gave my copy.
first two rows.
Perfect.
I'm on the front page for 18-19.
Perfect, thank
When
you.
you compare instructional salary from 18-19 to 17-18, instructional salary spending only went up a total of about $820,000.
Yeah,
Now,
from our straight-
I am a teacher.
Budgeted or actual?
That was just actual from what we just filed and it just came out.
Everything on this document from 18-17 back came from the DOE website, and these are from the AFRs, which are filed with the state. 18-19 is not filed yet because it's on the board agenda for it to be voted on tonight, to be filed, so.
But you pulled that from the board agenda?
Yes, sir.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So the other thing, I am a teacher, but I started looking at all the salaries that we spend on as a district. The other biggest category string in the budget that's presented to the state that we spend on is administration salary. And if you look at the trend from 17-18 to 18-19, we spent less money as a district on administration salary. And even if you go backwards about 4 years, administration salary has not really moved. When we talk 200,000 against $29 million, that's not that much. So the next thing I did is I compared that to overall spending to try to see if there was any trends. And just comparing where it says percentage of overall spending, that is instructional salaries versus overall spending. And from 13 to 2018, instructional salary represented 68% of overall salary spending for the budget. For 18-19, it only represented 67%. While 1% is not that much, when you look at total spending of $347 million, 1% is $3.4 million less when you look at the overall budget. So one of my concerns by looking at that was when we had the impasse hearing and the district presented their raise plan with their bonuses, they predicted that we would have a $6.2 million recurring cost, and overall it was going to cost the district $9.5 million because of the bonus. But even if you look at instructional salary, school administrator salary, and overall salary, the budget never went up that much. So moving forward, I wonder if we're not estimating that number properly, so when we're negotiating, it's kind of a moving number.
Do you see this?
Does that number reflect fringe and retirement changes and any other benefits?
No, all he's looking at here is just salaries. The only way the raise would appear within the 2 years, so that you would see a difference of exactly the raise, is if we had no turnover. All 9,000 employees were here in 17-18, and all 9,000 employees were in 18-19. Then you can see the overall impact of the raise. The impact of the raise is partially offset by the change in our employees. We have those who retire, we have those who quit at all levels, and as a result, you never do see the impact. It goes back to earlier, I forget, I think it was maybe Mr. Susan who asked me about the salaries being down, and it is that change, and we have been providing lapse dollars. The 1.2% I mentioned in talking about the labor, and then more recently, the change we've made to retiree lapse. We're still analyzing lapse and working with Dr. Mullins to determine if there's anything else. But some of that you're not gonna see a comparison like this of exactly the raise unless everybody stays the same.
But you're going to go right down that line. I know you are. Go ahead.
Well, he just said it. If it was going to cost us even, and we were projecting that lapse, and we were supposed to also, on top of that, take that into, it was going to cost us $6 million plus the $3 million.
Mm-hmm.
How come that's not reflected in these numbers? Now, these numbers were just handed to us. I haven't cross-checked where they came from. I don't, all of those things, but
I just checked
where?
You can't, again, they're there, and I can get analysis for the board on it. I'm working on it. You do have, they've been right. We've never said there is no lapse. Lapse occurs due to the change of salaries. Lapse occurs due to vacancies, how long someone works in a year, how they don't. Lapse occurs, and we have been working first with Dr. Blackburn and now Dr. Mullins to provide the additional lapse over and above what we had already given away or pulled 30 years ago.
But if we are dumping $6 million into a raise, you would think there would be really close to a $6 million gap between 27-18 and 2018-19.
Not if you
yes?
had turnover with change that equals $5 million.
Then it wouldn't be costing us anything it would cost us $1 million for a raise.
Right.
Right?
And that's the essence of what he's getting at.
But that's also why we have been adding, and if you will remember back to the new and recurring lapse dollars that helped to create the $14,953,000, there's $3 million of lapse added into that for the 1920. That is where we're providing back some of that lapse into providing the dollar numbers to it.
So we were counting it as non-recurring, but is that?
There was a portion we had done, about half of it was falling to the non-recurring due to errors in the way the report was picking up that was being provided to us by technology. So there was a group of retirees that were missing off of it. We've corrected that. Matter of fact, there's $1.5 million that we're negotiating with in addition to for the union. So we are working as a team, Dr. Theddy, Dr. Mullins and my team, and ET under Russell Cheatham, to identify all of the lapse dollars and assure we are providing everything and that we can analyze it. I was working with Dr. Mullins and Dr. Theddy on that today.
So it seems like the lapse dollars are around 20 million, and they stay there from year to year, roughly up and down. So
there are two different types of lapse. You have salary lapse, which has portions of recurring, and then you have non-salary lapse that is non-recurring. What we're talking
Understood.
about here is salary lapse.
Okay.
So, you wanted to follow up? Here's what the bottom line is that if we say it's going to increase our budget by X, and it's not, and this is what the numbers that come back, then there is more money in the lapse salary, and we do need to do an evaluation of it, because I think there's nothing that's more clear than that literally that is straight from our budget book. I just looked at it, 233,861. It's on our tonight's financial statements. It's what we're going to present to the entire state. It's what those columns that I sent to the CAFR, that's what it is. So he's right, and it's also something that I said at the hearing is that school admin is another area of lapse salary, because they're the same way. We've seen a big turnover of our retirees, and that's happening there too. So
We are calculating lapse in 100% of our employees, not just teachers, when we look at that.
right.
Did you have another?
Yes, ma'am, I'll try to be quick. I just want to point out one other thing about the salaries before I move to the second page. Overall salaries for BPS as a district did go up, but your two major categories did not, barely moved. So that's kind of an outlier, like why would the rest of the district go up by almost 4 million when your two largest categories didn't move for salaries? And that's, if you look at BPS overall, and then you compare it, it went up almost $4 million. When if you look at the net gain from your two salaries for 18-19 for instructional and admin was only about $600,000.
Where did you see the increase occurring?
I wasn't able to find it. Part of the problem is, and it's really hard to look at the overview, because once you get into the categories, like for instructional salary, all that is not base pay. Some of that is supplements, some of that is bonuses, some of that is extra pay, and however it all gets combined. So it's really hard to compare from last year what we spent on base salary to this year based on the public documents available. I would love to see them and look at them, and I think I could help find something. And then I had one more thing, if I could just point you to the back. Or another thing I looked at on the back, on the second page, was I did a comparison of purchase services. And I know this has been a hot topic, and I completely understand that the majority of instructional spending from purchase services is going to charter schools. I believe according to your budget, 18-19, it's almost $50 million that went to charter schools. Completely understand that. One thing that stood out to me immediately when I put this together is if you look at the differences between instructional versus overall spending and purchase services, it's the far right column. From 2013 to 2018, the difference between instructional purchase services to overall purchase services has always been $18 million, between 19.5 and about $18.5 million. In 2018 to 2019, that jumped by $8 million to make a difference of $26 million. I looked and I could not find it, so thank you.
Ms. Zucker, do you have any idea why that? And that's kind of putting you on the spot with no prior. Maybe it's something you can look into for us.
I'm not exactly sure what I think he's looking at for 18, 19.
Yeah,
to
how it goes from
26.
18, it's like, as he said, from 2013 on to 2017, 18, 19 million, and then there's a huge jump to 2018, 19, another $10 million.
If you look at the
$8 to
far
$10
right
million.
column.
Yeah, I see it. I'm just trying to compare it back to my AFR. I'd have to look into it. I don't have an answer. I would have to work with staff to identify that, and that's going to be, finding the division that it's creating and working with them. The one thing I did want to say, and I'm happy to provide Mr. Savage a breakout by object, which will show him teacher salaries, the bonuses, and so forth. We're happy to do that. Where he's picking up the $233 million, that is not 100% of our instructional unit.
Right.
That is the
said
function of
that.
instruction, classroom teachers only. Media specialists, guidance counselors are in other functions. So if we were looking at just the BFT group, they're mixed in the functions here. And we have a report that we can share with him by object, by function, so he can see where they're at.
Can you get us the total? What I want to see is the difference from 2017 to 2018 to 2019 total salaries. Can you get that? Not right this minute, but in the next week or so. Because what I'm looking at right there is $800,000 when I know we approved a $6 million raise. And so once all employees are totaled in there,
Just as information, some of those salaries, in particularly operation of plant and maintenance and capital, are actually funded with capital dollars that are transferred over. If you'll remember, we bring over
8 million.
money from capital to pay for some of those salaries. And then, so there's some transfers going on. Some of this is funded with other funds, but we'll be happy to provide whatever you would like. You want to see what makes up the 347 or the difference between 1718 to 1819?
I would like to see the difference, because that will tell us the funds that we're maybe not capturing in lapse.
What I would like is just every single line item from the $87 million. That way I can look at it and see. $87 million in overall purchase services.
Oh, you're back.
Because
over.
we're going to go around in circles where this cost center costs this and this cost center costs that. Let's just look at it. Because we can then pull out charters. We can pull out everything from there. Let's just get that list. I know it might be 300,000 lines, but let's do it.
No, it actually won't be that.
No, I know, but I'm just saying. I think that's what we need to do.
And
Get that
also,
list.
just to let the board know, I've offered to Mr. Colucci for him and any of the BFT leadership to come in and go through all of our reports and backup documentation as well.
Because I'm usually the nice guy. She's always been helpful. Every time I email her or ask her a question, she always answers. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. We appreciate your politeness and your information and the time you take to compile.
Mr. Savage, do you guys have, you're going to work on him? Is it?
Is there any individual that would like to address the board on the 2019-2020 tentative budget? Okay, the public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. This will bring us to the recommendation for the adoption of the proposed millage rates and the tentative budget. Dr. Mullins.
Florida Statute 200.065 requires each taxing authority levying millage to publicly state the name of the taxing authority, the rollback rates, the percentage of change from the rollback rates, and the millage rate to be levied prior to the adoption of the millage levy resolution. In compliance with those requirements, the following needs to be stated. The taxing authority is the School Board of Brevard County, Florida. The 2019-2020 rollback rates are required local effort, 3.8452. Local discretionary, 0.7100. Capital outlay, 1.4238. Total rollback rate, 5.9790. The total millage rate to be levied exceeds the total rollback rate by 1.79%. The proposed 2019-20 millage rates are required local effort, 3.838, local discretionary, 0.748, capital outlay, 1.5, total millage rate, 6.086. These are a total of 11 separate motions. I will read each of the recommendations into the record and request board action. First, adopt the resolution setting the required local effort, local discretionary, and capital outlay millage rate of 6.086 mils for 2019-2020. The written resolution is incorporated into this motion by reference.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Belford. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
Second motion, authorize the superintendent to adjust the adopted millage levy and budget due to changes in the certified tax roll.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
Third, authorize the superintendent to move the adopted millage levy resolution to the Brevard County property appraiser and tax collector no later than 30 days following the adjournment of the Value Adjustment Board.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Belford. Any discussion? Please vote. Dr. Mullins?
Fourth, adopt the 2019-2020 budget in the following amounts. Operating, $635,117,180. Special revenue, $108,338,690. Debt service, $41,400,271. Capital outlay, $272,288,551. Enterprise, $5,523,722. Subtotal, $1,062,668,414. Less transfers, $56,712,284. Total, $1,005,956,130. Internal service, $90,946,735.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Campbell, second by Ms. McDougall. Any discussion?
I'm okay, like you roll.
Please vote.
I was usually trying to hurry it, that's all.
Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins?
Fifth, authorize the superintendent to forward the following to the designated state agencies: the adopted budget, millage levy resolution, certified tax roll, rolled back rates, proposed millage, and certified copies of advertisements of the proposed budget and millage rate to the State Department of Education. Second, the millage levy resolution, certified tax roll, rolled back rates, proposed millage, and certified copies of the advertisements for the proposed budget and millage rate to the Department of Revenue.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. McDougall, second by Ms. Belford. Any discussion? Please,
Did I mess up?
discussion?
No. She's
Please
supposed to
vote.
step up, she didn't.
He's messing with me.
You gotta be quick.
Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins?
Approve the release of $241,084 in committed fund balance to pay the cost of centralized internal accounts for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Ms. Zerker, is the services for money pickup included inside of this?
The courier service for deposits, yes, it is.
So what portion of the 241 is that courier service?
$70,000.
Okay. Can you get me a copy of the total we spent on that courier service last year in the future sometime?
Absolutely. And
Perfect.
I believe what we spent last year was actually below the 70,000.
Perfect. Well, the total, not just that, I want the total bill we sent them, which is above 70.
Oh, that would include the portion paid by food service,
Yes,
Brevard
all of it.
after-school care. Absolutely, we can get it for you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins?
Approve the release of $200,000 in committed fund balance to pay the cost of school athletic assistance for fiscal year 2019-2020.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion? Please vote.
You get it this time. Dr. Mullins wanted us out of here by 8:30.
Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins?
Approve the release of $250,000 in committed fund balance to pay the cost of school security resource officers for fiscal year 2019-2020. 2020.
What are the wishes of the board?
Second.
Motion by Ms. McDougall, second by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion? Oh, I have a quick question. Didn't you mention sometime today that those funds were not going to come out of fund balance now, that they were being taken from the Safe Schools allocation?
They're still being used out of fund balance and allocated to fund the full 88 SROs if all of our schools had one. Some point after everything is settled down, I'll work with Dr. Mullins and Mr. Novelli to analyze that. And anything that's not going to
Whatever
be
falls
used
goes
will come
back.
back
Okay.
to for use for something else. Those will be non-recurring dollars, similar to what we did in 1819 to help provide the bonuses.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
Approve the release of $437,760 in committed fund balance to pay the cost of social workers for fiscal year 2019-2020.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. McDougall. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
Approve the release of $824,108 in committed fund balance to pay the cost of instructional coaches for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Wishes of the board.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
Approve placing $1,461,868 in committed fund balance to pay the cost of instructional coaches, social workers, and athletic assistants for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Wishes of the board.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion? Please vote. Dr. Mullins? Oh,
That's it.
that is it for the special hearing. This hearing is now adjourned for the special board meeting hearing.
You guys would have taken so long on your presentations.
Does anyone need a break before we go through all the policies? Anybody requesting a break? Board members, hello? Anybody need a break? Nope, we're good? Okay.
Rock and roll. Amy, do you need a break? We never asked you. I'm sorry.
Ms. Sunval, do you need a break?
No, I'm good,
Ms.
thank you.
Escobar?
Ms. Escobar, you need a break? Okay. We are now on to the action agenda. Dr. Mullins.
We will move on to item G34 on purchasing solicitations.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Belford. Any discussion? Please vote.
Come on, Pam, get that thing going.
Amy, you've been working way too hard. There's too many policies.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Didn't realize it was photos.
Dr. Mullins.
Hey, thank you, you guys, for all your hard work on this budget. We really appreciate it. So, just figured I'd tell them thank you.
Dr. Mullins.
The next 6 items are to hold public hearings and approve the revisions to School Board Policies 3122, 5122, 5330, 5540, 8405, and 8407.
First is Board Policy 3122, Equal Employment Opportunity. Is there anyone here who's come to address the revisions to Board Policy 3122? Is there anyone here who's come to address the revisions to Board Policy 3122, Equal Employment Opportunity? I could Dr. Sullivan. Yeah, put your seatbelts on. We got a wild ride for the next 30 minutes or so.
Don't jinx us.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Motion
Give it to them.
by Ms. Belford, second by Mr. Susan. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Our next policy is 5112, entrance requirements. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the revisions to Board Policy 5112? Is there anyone here who's come to address the revisions to Board Policy 5112, entrance requirements?
We're wearing off on the back of the room.
The back of the room's having a hard time.
Sugar.
Laughing gas back there.
It's been a long day for those in the back of the room. Ms. Escobar, it's not asking for a vote on these? Are they under a different section?
You have to do, is there anyone to speak to?
I did that twice on this one. We do need to vote on these, right? Okay. I just want to make sure. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. McDougall. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Policy 5330, use of medication is next. Is there anyone present who wishes to make comments regarding Policy 5330? Ms. Escobar, I like how you've given me a variety of wording. Now I get to change it up. Please come forward at this time if you would like, if you wish to make any comments regarding School Board Policy 5330, use of medications.
The best, Pam.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Belford. Any discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Susan and I will go down in history. as
Mhm.
parents who
What?
allowing medical marijuana.
Is that the medical
Yeah,
marijuana
it is.
one that we?
Yeah.
I think we should comment on that. No?
Go ahead. You can say something now. I mean, I think these are all great policies all the way through, but I wasn't allowed to talk.
Yeah,
You
for
guys
those.
held up the whole meeting with your pre-session.
For those that are watching at home, we have had many meetings on these policies where we've hashed them out, we've workshopped them, we have work sessioned and workshopped them. So I know before I was on the school board, sometimes I would look at the board just approving everything 5-0 without talking about it, and I would wonder if anybody's doing their job. So if you're at home wondering that, you can go back and watch the work sessions and workshops on these. Ms. Campbell, did you want to address the use of medication policy?
Again, for the benefit of those in the audience here, you too, thank you. And at
Our
home,
usuals.
Our revisions to this policy related to medical marijuana were required by statute. Every school district was required to adopt a policy addressing the use of marijuana by our students only, and that's why we have the revisions to this policy.
Medical use of marijuana.
Medical
use of marijuana.
Of medical marijuana, yes.
Difficulty with that. Say it, Sam.
Too many M's.
I know.
Okay, we'll now move on to policy 5540, the school and community agencies. Is there anyone present who wishes to make comments regarding policy 5540 revisions? Is there anyone present who wishes to make comments regarding policy 5540 revisions? What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Balford, second by Ms. McDougall. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Policy 8405 is on school safety. Is there anyone present who wishes to make comments on the revisions to policy 8405? Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly address the revisions to School Board Policy 8405, school safety? What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Belford. Any discussion? Please vote.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you. Motion passes 5-0. The last policy for public comment this evening is Board Policy 8407, Safe School Officers. Is there anyone present who wishes to make comments regarding Policy 84, I guess I talked so long it shut off, 8407. Please come forward at this time if you wish to make comments regarding School Board Policy 8407, Safe School Officers. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. McDougall. Any discussion?
I
Please.
just wanted to say thank you to members of your organization that I reached out to for a lot of the input. We were able to actually adjust a lot of what happened, and I want to say thank you for that.
Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. This concludes the public comments on policy revisions. We will move on to the information agenda, which includes items for board review and we brought back for action at a later meeting. No action will be taken on these items tonight. Dr. Mullins.
There are 6 items under the information category.
Does any member wish to discuss any of the information items on tonight's agenda?
There are some good policies here. Good job, Amy Enval. That's what I wanted to discuss, how great you've been on putting all these together.
Absolutely. I know he sounds sarcastic, but Ms. Enval,
No,
we,
I'm not-
we
I'm
are
not sarcastic.
very
Like, I am serious. Why is
grateful.
that? You've done a great job.
I like policies.
Yeah, that's weird, but it's okay. Okay, but it's great. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
Many of our policies hadn't been updated in 20 years plus, some of them. So Ms. Enval's been doing a great job working with the staff in the back to update, and we've been working hard as a board to work session and workshop them. We are now on to board member discussion points and reports. Does anybody have anything they would like to report?
You got 14 points that I want to make.
I'm sure you do, Mr. Susan.
What? You guys are the ones who talked about forever. I said one thing at the beginning, and you guys took up all the time. So.
Dr. Mullins, do you have anything more to add for the superintendent's report? There being no further business, this meeting is now adjourned.
If everybody would have been quiet and I just asked my questions, we would have got out.